Why seniors are hearing about a $2,000 dividend check before Christmas. If you've been hearing nonstop talk about a possible $2,000 dividend check connected to President Trump, especially claims that it could arrive before Christmas, you are not alone. Over the past few weeks, social media platforms like Facebook, TikTok, and X have been flooded with headlines, short clips, and posts suggesting that a brand new payment is already on the way. Some posts say the checks are guaranteed, others say they're already approved, and many of them leave out critical details that seniors need to make sense of what's really happening. For many older Americans living on fixed incomes, this kind of information can be both hopeful and stressful at the same time. On one hand, an extra $2,000 could mean groceries, medication, utility bills, or simply a little breathing room during an expensive season. On the other hand, conflicting reports create confusion, anxiety, and uncertainty. Is this real? Is it political talk? Or is this another rumor spreading faster than the facts? That confusion is exactly why it's important to slow everything down and look carefully at what actually started this conversation. The reason these claims gained traction is because President Trump publicly floated the idea of a $2,000 payment, calling it a dividend for low and middle income Americans. Those words alone were enough to spark viral reactions online, especially when people began repeating the phrase per person, not per household. In this series, we are not here to hype, promise, or speculate. We are here to separate confirmed facts from assumptions, explain what has been officially said, what has not been decided, and what seniors should realistically expect. By the end, you'll have clarity, not confusion, about where this proposal truly stands. The exact words that sparked the $2,000 dividend check discussion. To understand why this topic exploded so quickly, we need to look closely at what President Trump actually said, not what headlines suggested or what social media exaggerated. The entire conversation began with a post from President Trump on his Truth Social platform, where he discussed the idea of sending out a $2,000 payment per person to Americans earning low to middle incomes. The key word he used was dividend. That choice of language matters. A dividend implies money being returned to the people from revenue the government has already collected, not borrowed, not printed, and not added to the national debt in the traditional way. According to Trump, this revenue would come from tariffs, which are fees placed on certain imported goods entering the United States. What truly caught people's attention was his clarification that this would be per individual, not per household. For a single senior living alone, that would mean $2,000. For a married couple, $4,000. For households with multiple eligible adults or dependents, the total could rise significantly. Once those numbers started circulating, it's easy to see why so many people immediately began asking, is this real and when does it arrive? However, it's important to pause here and understand something critical. A proposal is not the same as a policy. A public statement, even from a former or current president, does not automatically create a payment. It starts a conversation, it signals intent, but it does not bypass the legal and administrative steps required to send money to millions of Americans. Many viral posts skipped that distinction entirely. They jumped straight from Trump proposed to checks are coming. That leap is where confusion began. Seniors deserve better than that. You deserve to know exactly what was said, what it means, and what still has to happen before any money moves. In the next part, we'll look at what matters even more than a social media post, what the White House has officially confirmed, and what they have not. That's where the picture starts to become clearer, but also more realistic. What the White House has officially confirmed. So far after President Trump's comments began circulating widely online, the next logical question was simple and important. What does the White House actually say about this? Because while public proposals can start conversations, official confirmation is what determines whether an idea moves forward or stops where it began. A reporter directly asked the White House press secretary whether Americans should realistically expect these $2,000 dividend payments and whether the administration was committed to turning the idea into action. The response was more direct than many expected. The press secretary stated that the White House is committed to making it happen and that the president has instructed his economic team to explore the legal pathways necessary to move the proposal forward. For many seniors, hearing the phrase committed to making it happen sparked renewed hope. And that reaction is understandable. Those words suggest intention, effort, and political will. But this is where careful listening becomes essential, because the confirmation did not come with a timeline, a final structure, or a signed agreement. The press secretary was also clear about what has not been decided yet. There is currently no finalized plan, no completed legislation, and no official payment schedule. In other words, the administration is working on the idea, but the process is still in the early stages. For seniors who have lived through multiple stimulus discussions over the years, this pattern may feel familiar. Governments often explore options long before they finalize details. That doesn't mean the proposal is empty, but it does mean it's incomplete. The door is open, but it hasn't been walked through yet. The most important takeaway from the White House's confirmation is this: the idea is real, the conversation is active, but the outcome is not guaranteed. That distinction protects seniors from false expectations and allows you to stay informed without being misled. In the next part, we'll focus on one of the most important questions seniors are asking: who would actually qualify if this proposal becomes law? Because eligibility matters just as much as intent. Who would qualify for the $2,000 dividend payment? Once the White House confirmed that the idea is being explored, the next question became deeply personal for many seniors. Would I qualify if this payment becomes real? Because no matter how promising a proposal sounds, it only matters if it applies to your situation. Based on what President Trump has publicly shared so far, the proposed income threshold would be $100,000 per year or less. Anyone earning under that amount would be eligible for the full $2,000 payment per person. There has been no indication of a gradual phase-out above that level, meaning the discussion so far points to a clear cutoff rather than complicated sliding rules. This is where the proposal becomes especially relevant for older Americans. Seniors who rely primarily or entirely on Social Security income would fall well below that threshold. The same is true for individuals receiving SSI, SSDI, VA benefits, or other disability-related support. Even seniors with little to no taxable income would still be considered eligible under the structure being discussed. Importantly, this proposal does not require employment. You would not need to be working, earning wages, or filing a full-time income return. Retired Americans are very clearly within the group this proposal is designed to support. In fact, many analysts believe low-income seniors and disabled Americans are among the primary groups policymakers have in mind. Another key detail that deserves careful attention is that the payment would be issued per person, not per household. That distinction can significantly change the impact for many families. A married couple could receive $4,000. A household with multiple eligible adults could receive even more. Seniors caring for dependent adult children may also see higher totals if those dependents qualify. For many households, this wouldn't be extra spending money. It would be essential support, help with groceries, prescription medications, heating costs, rent, or utilities. That's why clarity around eligibility matters so much. Seniors need to know whether this proposal applies to them before allowing hope to turn into expectation. In the next part, we'll address a question that often brings both optimism and skepticism. Where would the money actually come from? And is that funding truly realistic? Where the money would come from, and why that matters. One of the most common questions seniors ask when they hear about any new payment is simple and reasonable. Where does the money actually come from? Because no government payment appears out of nowhere, and understanding the funding source helps determine whether a proposal is realistic or just talk. President Trump has repeatedly said that these proposed $2,000 dividend checks would be funded by tariff revenue. In simple terms, tariffs are fees charged on certain goods imported into the United States. When companies bring products like electronics, machinery, clothing, or industrial materials into the country, they pay these fees to the federal government. According to statements Trump shared publicly, recent tariff collections have been unusually strong. He claimed that the United States brought in approximately $29 billion in a single week from tariffs. That number immediately caught attention because it suggests a steady stream of revenue that already exists, rather than new borrowing or printing money. Financial analysts estimate that sending $2,000 payments to all eligible Americans would cost around $160 billion in total. If tariff revenue truly reaches the levels described, then from a purely mathematical perspective, several weeks of tariff collections could theoretically cover the cost. However, this is where careful analysis becomes important. Having money available is not the same as having permission to spend it. Even if tariff revenue is flowing in, Congress must still authorize how that money is used. Legal frameworks, budget approvals, and administrative processes all need to be completed before a single dollar can be sent out. For seniors who have watched financial proposals come and go over the years, this distinction matters. Strong revenue makes a proposal possible, but it does not make it automatic. The funding argument is encouraging, but it is not a guarantee. In the next part, we'll move to the question that sits in the back of nearly every senior's mind. If this happens, when would the money actually arrive? And we'll look at the difference between hopeful timelines and realistic ones. When could the $2,000 dividend checks actually arrive? After understanding the proposal and the funding discussion, the most important question for many seniors becomes, when would the money actually arrive? Timing matters, especially for households managing tight budgets, rising costs, and holiday expenses. President Trump has publicly suggested that if this proposal moves forward, the most realistic timeline would be around the middle of next year, specifically mid-2025, possibly June or July. That is the time frame he himself has mentioned. It's important to note that this is not a confirmed schedule, but rather an estimate based on how long similar processes have taken in the past. At the same time, many online posts and commentators have suggested the possibility of payments arriving before Christmas. While that idea has generated a lot of hope, it's also where expectations need to be grounded in reality. Even if a proposal were approved today, the federal government would still need time to finalize rules, coordinate agencies, and prepare large-scale payment systems. Looking back at the 2021 stimulus checks helps put this into perspective. At that time, systems were already in place, and it still took roughly 2 weeks after legislation was signed for the first payments to go out. In the current situation, there is no finalized bill yet, and we are already deep into the holiday season. That makes a Christmas payout extremely unlikely, even under the most optimistic scenarios. Not impossible, but highly unrealistic given the steps that remain unfinished. For seniors, it's far healthier to expect a later timeline than to plan around a payment that may not arrive for many months. The most honest expectation, based on confirmed statements and past experience, is that mid-2025 is the time frame being discussed seriously behind the scenes. In the next part, we'll look at something that has surprised many people: the level of bipartisan interest in these payments, and why that matters for whether this proposal has a real chance of moving forward. Why bipartisan interest makes this proposal more serious. One of the most unexpected aspects of this $2,000 dividend check discussion is the level of interest from both political parties. In today's climate, where political disagreements often stall progress, bipartisan attention is rare, and when it appears, it matters. Several Democratic leaders and policy figures have expressed support for the general idea of direct cash payments to Americans. Andrew Yang, for example, has long supported universal cash payments and quickly voiced agreement with the concept behind Trump's proposal. That response wasn't surprising, given Yang's past advocacy, but it reinforced the idea that this discussion goes beyond party lines. More notably, other Democratic lawmakers have previously proposed similar plans. One representative from California introduced an idea involving $2,000 payments for Americans earning under $100,000, closely mirroring the structure currently being discussed. While the funding sources and political framing differ, the core goal is the same: providing direct relief to households struggling with rising costs. For seniors, this bipartisan interest is important because it increases the proposal's political viability. When only one party supports an idea, it often faces immediate resistance. When both sides acknowledge that families are under pressure and that direct payments could help, the conversation becomes harder to dismiss. That doesn't mean approval is guaranteed, but it does mean the proposal is being taken seriously across the aisle. Inflation, housing costs, healthcare expenses, and food prices are affecting seniors regardless of political affiliation. When lawmakers recognize that reality, practical solutions become more likely. Inflation concerns and what Treasury officials are saying. Whenever large payments to the public are discussed, one concern quickly rises to the surface: inflation. Many seniors remember how prices increased after previous stimulus programs, and it's natural to wonder whether another round of payments could make everyday costs even higher. The U.S. Treasury Secretary was asked directly whether these proposed $2,000 dividend checks could cause inflation to spike again. Rather than rejecting the idea outright, his response suggested caution and uncertainty. He acknowledged that many economic factors are still unfolding and said that tariff-funded payments could be part of what happens next year. He also raised the idea that Americans might be encouraged to save the payments instead of spending them immediately, referencing long-term savings concepts such as so-called Trump accounts. These would involve setting aside money for future generations, including children born in coming years. For many seniors, that response felt disconnected from reality. When groceries, utilities, rent, and medication costs are rising now, the idea of saving a payment rather than using it to meet immediate needs can feel unrealistic. Inflation concerns are valid, but so is the daily financial strain millions of households are experiencing. From an analytical standpoint, the inflation impact depends on several factors: how the payments are funded, how quickly they are spent, and the broader economic environment at the time. Because this proposal relies on existing tariff revenue rather than new borrowing, some economists argue the inflationary risk could be lower than in past stimulus programs. Still, no consensus exists yet. For seniors, the key takeaway is balance. Policymakers are weighing inflation risks against the reality that many Americans are already stretched thin. A $2,000 payment wouldn't solve every problem, but it could provide meaningful relief during a period of high costs. In the next part, we'll shift from national policy debates to something much more personal and practical: what seniors should and should not do right now while this proposal remains uncertain. What seniors should do right now while things are uncertain. When news about possible payments begins circulating, it's easy for hope to quietly turn into planning. For seniors managing tight budgets, even the idea of future money can influence decisions today. That's why this part of the conversation may be the most important of all. The first and most honest piece of guidance is simple: do not rely on money that is not in your account yet. Nothing about this proposal has been finalized. No bill has been signed. No payment system has been activated. Planning expenses around a payment that may take months or may not happen at all can create unnecessary risk. If you are behind on bills or facing rising costs, it's natural to think about how a $2,000 payment could help. But turning expectation into spending before confirmation can lead to difficult situations. Keeping your budget stable right now is the safest choice. The second step seniors should take is to make sure their information is up to date with the IRS. If these payments are approved, they would likely be distributed in the same way previous stimulus payments were sent. That means direct deposit would be the fastest method. If your bank account has changed, if you've moved recently, or if your mailing address is different from what the IRS has on file, updating that information now can prevent delays later. Even seniors with limited income benefit from staying current in the system. Another important step is filing taxes, even if you believe you are not required to. For many seniors, filing a simple return helps the government verify eligibility, household status, and address information. This can make the difference between receiving a payment quickly or waiting months to resolve an issue. In the next part, we'll address a serious and growing concern that often appears whenever relief payments are discussed: scams. Seniors deserve to be protected from misinformation and fraud, especially during uncertain times. Scam warnings. Every senior needs to hear right now. Whenever potential relief payments are mentioned, scammers move quickly. They take advantage of uncertainty, hope, and confusion, especially among seniors who are simply trying to stay informed and protect themselves. This is not new, and unfortunately, it happens every single time financial assistance is discussed publicly. It's important to understand this clearly. The IRS will never call you, text you, email you, or message you on social media asking for personal information related to a payment. They will never ask you to verify your social security number, bank account, debit card, or password, and they will never charge a fee to release a benefit. Scammers often pretend to be government officials. They may claim your payment is on hold, that your account needs confirmation, or that you must act immediately to avoid losing your money. These messages are designed to create urgency and fear. If someone pressures you to act quickly, that is a major warning sign. Phone calls, emails, fake IRS websites, and even mailed letters can all be part of these schemes. Seniors who respond, even once, may become repeat targets. The safest response is simple. Hang up, delete the message, and do not engage. If you are ever unsure, contact the IRS directly using official contact information or speak with a trusted family member, financial advisor, or community support organization before taking action. Protecting your personal information is just as important as receiving any payment. A $2,000 check is not worth the risk of identity theft or financial loss. In the next part, we'll look at something equally important: why seniors should not wait for a future payment if they need help right now, and which programs already exist to provide immediate support. Why seniors should use existing support programs right now. While it's important to stay informed about potential future payments, it's equally important not to delay help that is already available. Many seniors are facing real financial pressure today, not months from now. Waiting for a payment that may take time or may not happen at all can create unnecessary hardship. There are several assistance programs currently in place that help millions of older Americans cover essential expenses. SNAP benefits, for example, can help reduce grocery costs. Programs like LIHEAP can assist with heating and cooling bills. Many states also offer property tax relief, utility discounts, and prescription drug assistance specifically for seniors. These programs are not loans. They are not charity. They are benefits designed to support people who have worked their entire lives and now need help managing rising costs. Applying for them does not affect eligibility for Social Security or other earned benefits. Some seniors hesitate to apply because the process feels overwhelming or because they believe others need help more than they do. But these programs exist for a reason. Using them can provide stability and reduce stress, while larger policy discussions continue in Washington. Even small monthly assistance can make a meaningful difference when combined with careful budgeting. And importantly, these programs are active now. They don't depend on future legislation or political negotiations. In the next part, we'll step back and look at the full picture: what we know for certain, what remains uncertain, and how seniors can make sense of all of it without feeling overwhelmed. What we know for sure and what remains uncertain. After examining every part of this proposal, from the initial announcement to funding, timing, and eligibility, it helps to step back and look at the full picture. When information is spread across headlines and social media posts, clarity often gets lost. So let's separate what is confirmed from what is still unknown. We know that President Trump has publicly proposed $2,000 payments per person, referring to them as a dividend for low and middle income Americans. We know he has identified tariff revenue as the intended funding source and has stated that these funds are being collected at historically high levels. We also know that the White House has confirmed the administration is committed to exploring legal pathways to make these payments possible. That means the discussion is real and ongoing. Seniors receiving Social Security, SSI, SSDI, or VA benefits would very likely fall within the income limits being discussed. At the same time, there are important things we do not know yet. There is no finalized legislation, there is no signed bill, there is no official payment schedule, and there is no guarantee that the proposal will survive the full legislative process unchanged or at all. Trump has suggested mid-2025 as a possible time frame, but that remains an estimate, not a promise. Funding availability does not equal approval, and political interest does not replace legal authorization. Understanding both sides of this reality allows seniors to stay informed without being misled. Hope is healthy, but clarity is essential. In the next part, we'll focus on something just as important as policy details: emotional and financial stability, and why seniors deserve calm, honest communication during uncertain times. Why seniors deserve calm, honest, financial communication. For many seniors, the hardest part of financial uncertainty isn't just the lack of money. It's the emotional weight that comes with it. Rapid headlines, conflicting reports, and constant speculation can create stress, anxiety, and even fear. That's why calm, honest communication matters just as much as policy decisions. Older Americans have lived through recessions, inflation cycles, government shutdowns, and countless promises that never fully materialized. Experience teaches caution, and that caution deserves respect, not dismissal. Seniors do not need hype. They need clarity, transparency, and time to make thoughtful decisions. When information moves too fast, it can pressure people into reacting instead of planning. That's especially dangerous for those living on fixed incomes. Stability, both emotional and financial, comes from understanding what is real, what is possible, and what is still uncertain. This is why responsible analysis focuses on facts first, speculation second, and personal well-being above all else. Whether this payment ultimately happens or not, seniors deserve to feel informed, not overwhelmed. You deserve updates that explain rather than alarm. In times like these, patience is not weakness, it's protection. Staying grounded, keeping budgets steady, and focusing on what you can control today are signs of strength, not hesitation. In the final part, we'll bring everything together with a clear closing message, one focused on dignity, awareness, and moving forward with confidence. Final thoughts: clarity over confusion, stability over speculation. As we close this discussion, it's important to return to what truly matters: clarity, stability, and dignity. Financial conversations should help seniors feel informed and empowered, not rushed, pressured, or confused by speculation. The proposal for a $2,000 dividend payment has sparked attention because it speaks directly to real needs. Rising costs, fixed incomes, and economic uncertainty are part of daily life for millions of older Americans. The fact that this idea is being discussed seriously, with potential funding identified and bipartisan interest acknowledged, matters. At the same time, responsible analysis requires honesty. There is no finalized law, there is no guaranteed payment date, and there is no reason for seniors to alter their financial plans based on something that remains under discussion. The healthiest approach is balance. Stay informed, but stay grounded. Be hopeful, but be cautious. Protect your information, use the support programs that already exist, and avoid decisions based on money that has not yet arrived. Seniors have earned the right to calm, respectful communication, updates that value truth over headlines and care over clicks. Whatever happens next, moving forward with knowledge and confidence will always be the strongest position. Thank you for taking the time to stay informed. You deserve peace of mind, financial stability, and honest information every step of the way.